Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is a session on how standards can empower innovation and how to navigate the standards process, specifically in SMPTE. So my name is Thomas Bowser-Mason. I'm the Director of Standards Development at SMPTE, and I'm responsible for the standards process there. Oh, it's out on there. So next slide. Let's start high level. What's a standards? We all know what a standards is. We all know that we need them. If you plug in a power plug into a wall outlet, or if you screw in a light bulb into a light fixture, or if you watch TV, from the camera all the way to the TV set, there are thousands of standards in the works. Some of them are SMPTE standards. And we're very proud of that. But what the standard really stands for, it's an industry consensus on an implementation of a specific technology. It harmonizes the technology, the implementation, and it also provides interoperability for that specific implementation. But under the hood, there's more to it. It provides a technology platform where multiple vendors can build products and compete with each other on a level playing field, and that level playing field is the standard itself. If we talk about international standards, they can have a global reach. You can build these products for the international market. But it also becomes important if you look at trade agreements, trade policies, government policies, right? So that's where standards really have a place as well. They provide a common language. Almost every document I worked on has a terms and definition section to give you specific terms. So if you look at equipment, you understand what the different features are, and you can do a compare. You can do equipment shootouts, and you can understand what these features are. Technology acceptance is usually increased by standards because they're seen as more dependable and more stable. So that's really an important feature. They reduce complexity because they're providing you with simplified building blocks to build an implementation of that technology. And they make away with vendor-induced barriers for technology. And all that, and I think also with the process which we have in a standards organization, that really increases security, and it's really important. So the process is a differentiator for standards development organizations. So what does that mean? You have all kinds of organizations which create interoperability solutions. You have industry consortiums, trade organizations, and they usually create technical specifications and technical recommendations. You can have corporations, companies who create de facto standards. That's really, for example, Apple, what they did with ProRes and QuickTime became a de facto standard. People often talk about specification as standards. So there's a real kind of mix up what a standard is. When I talk about standards, I talk about the process and which a standards organization adopts. And what is that process? We call it the do process. It's supposed to be open. There shouldn't be any barriers for anybody with a material interest in participating in standards development to join that effort. It should be fair and balanced, a balance between users, vendors, and general interest. It's supposed to be neutral, confidential space where people can come and discuss technology. Vendors can meet there, competitors can meet there, talk about technology, and they want to be sure that this stays all in the hallways where it's being discussed. We have confidentiality policies as well as IPR policies to make sure that your patents are not being infringed. It's a consensus-driven process. It's really important. We have votes and ballots, we call them, to ensure that. So at certain points in the process, you're gonna be people voting on this. We have to provide evidence of consensus, meaning we have to record for the history the results of these votes and ballots. But important to understand, this process is not a process SMPTE, for example, developed. It is a process which was assigned to SMPTE, we are ANSI accredited organization, standards developing organization. That really means we are following the ANSI essential requirements, which you can look up on the ANSI website. So we can't just go and change that process without endangering our status as a standards development organization. That creates a problem. It's often standards are perceived as being too slow. That depends. I would say that's a mixed bag. In some cases, that's certainly true. In some other cases, it's not. It really depends on how many people are involved in the project, how complex the project is, and is it a relevant a project for the industry where there's a real industry need. So if there's pressure from the industry behind it, standards projects can go really, really quick because suddenly you have a lot of participation and you can move this along. The other problem is consensus finding, consensus building is sometimes a very difficult process, and getting everybody to agree can take quite some time, especially if you have big companies at the table. So standards and innovation, people say often, standards stifle innovations. I don't think that's true. I think standards really empower innovation. There are some who say innovation is only possible because of standards. So, I like that, obviously. But what are the arguments that standards empower innovation? I put 5 here. Reduce uncertainty and risk for innovators. That's really kind of like the stable standard base you can have to build your innovation on. Feedback and guidance for innovators is in the standards, so you can use standards again to innovate and develop your products. Competition encourages innovation on a level playing field. Again, that's the standard who's creating this level playing field. If you're familiar with ST 2110, that's a good example for that. Interoperability, collaboration, and that's really, I think, most important. On a personal level, when I got involved in standards development, it's a very collaborative process. There are a lot of people at the table who not necessarily agree, but they're all moving towards one target to create a standard for an interoperable technology. And you learn a lot, and it's a real knowledge transfer, and this knowledge transfer can really help you to come up with new ideas and new innovation based on these existing standards. So really kind of like a symbiotic relationship between standards and innovation. The other argument is that once you're done with a standard, it's stable and it's really hard to change it. Again, I don't think that's quite true. If you start with a technology, you go into the standards process, you draft, you go through the process. There may be interoperability testing. There's a review of those results, which go into the drafting again. And at the end, you have a standard coming out on the other side. What's important here is there's also, when you want to create a standard, you need user requirements. You don't want to develop something just based on a hunch. You want facts and user requirements. You want implementation feedback. So it's a continuous standard process. It doesn't stop once the document comes out. We continuously work on this based on changes in user requirement, based on feedback we get from implementers, what works and what doesn't work. Interop testing is really important there. And over time, you update your documents, you get more standards documents, and often you have a suite of standards which make up an implementation of a technology. So why would you come to SMPTE? I wanted to put that in. Why am I here? SMPTE is concerned about media and entertainment technology. We are internationally recognized standards developer for media and entertainment. There's some criteria, characteristics for SMPTE. We are focused on media technology mainly. We also have feelers into medical applications if they about pictures. We are a global organization. We have chapters everywhere in the world, in Asia, Australia, Europe, North America. We have international member community. I always say SMPTE standards come to life through their members. Again, very international from all over the world involved in developing our standards. SMPTE itself is a very small organization, 16, 17 people. So all the work in standards development is being done by our members. I guide and help with the process, but the work itself is done by our members. We do process, I already mentioned that. That not only has a benefit in differentiating ourselves from other organizations and give you the benefits I mentioned before, but it's also a gateway to other standards organization, standards development organization. So our standards can be adopted by national and regional, international and regional standards developer, but SMPTE can also be a gateway to a true international standards, the ISO. We did that with some of our documents. We pass them on to ISO and make them international standards. Not every country in the world recognizes SMPTE as a standards developer. They do ISO, and so if we make our standards ISO standards, you can break into those countries as well and broaden the technology reach, really. And then SMPTE is really old, 108 years. That sounds like a bad thing, but I think it's actually good because we provide a lot of stability. And in 50 years, you may be coming back to SMPTE to look at for the ST 2110 standards, just for historical purpose, and we're going to have them, right? So we're going to be around trade organization, industry forums, companies going to go away, their technology gets lost. Sometimes companies actually come to us to give us the technology so it's preserved for the ages, so to say. What does that mean for you? I try to map in some words which are more targeted at what's in for me as personal development. First of all, you learn a lot. I learned a lot over my 16, 18 years in SMPTE as a member and staff member. It's a community of experts. You can dive into it. You can ask questions. You can email people and get in contact. You can create a network. We have almost all of the who's who of the media and entertainment technology companies are in SMPTE. They're coming to our conferences. You can meet them. You can meet people who are working there as engineers, ask them questions, and form contacts. You can contribute if you have an idea yourself. You can get involved and you can bring yourself into the discussion. I think, for me personally, when I look back at these 16 years, I grew a lot as a professional. So that's another aspect of being involved in the standards development. And then resume. It's important for your resume. I worked at big companies and I saw job descriptions, which a lot of them asking for knowledge of SMPTE standards, being involved in SMPTE standards. So it's a really good thing for your resume as well. Innovative SMPTE standards, just a few examples here. And it shows you also kind of like how these standards drive evolution and innovation. SMPTE started out with film and sound. Out of that evolved digital cinema. We are the organization who created a lot of the digital cinema standards. And then, you may be familiar with the interoperable master format, another SMPTE standard, which is a versioning approach to address the explosion of distribution channels. And it's a package which is being used, which contains all the content you need to create all your deliverables you need to serve. And that is based on some of that digital cinema technology. So if you know the DCP, the digital cinema package, the principles there were underlying this IMF framework. So it's a real innovation, evolution from film to digital cinema to a distribution format. Similar with SDI and SMPTE ST 2110. SDI was at some time the format, the connection to connect professional equipment. That's now more and more pushed to the side by SMPTE ST 2110. The evolution there was to move SDI first to to IP networks and encapsulate SDI frames in RTP strings. And then now it's SMPTE ST2110, which does away with this concept of SDI and does mono essence streams. A real innovation. And then timecode. Think about the myriad of application which are based on SMPTE timecode and which are innovated on that technology. Here's another proof of innovation, how innovative SMPTE standards can be. Those are all the technical Emmys and awards we received for SMPTE standards. Quite a few. In the middle there's a technical Oscar, in which we got as well. So quite a bit of recognition for the innovation SMPTE did. And this is more of a hands-on example. With the Sphere, I went there on Friday. Great experience, really innovative. What they did was display technology and wind and vibration in the chairs, and just great. But it's all based on SMPTE ST2110. So that's a good example where you can see that innovation was built on an existing standard. And I was in a session with the Madison Square Garden team, and they were saying the Sphere is probably the largest implementation of SMPTE ST2110 in the world. Not sure if it's true. I can believe it, but nevertheless, a great achievement. So what's next? Media in the cloud. We have a group working on that. We're looking into web services, doing standards around web services and how media services in the cloud can communicate, make it a standard so we can be cross-cloud. There's a control protocol coming to SMPTE soon, which is quite interesting. AI in media, we have a task force looking at AI in media. The task force report came out. I should have put a link on here. I missed that. But it's on the SMPTE website, SMPTE.org. If you go there, you can get that AI report. And we're hoping to do more there. Virtual production, if you heard about SMPTE, Rapid Industry Solutions, that's an effort in SMPTE to come up with specification sorts, and they will then be fed into the standards development system. There's another problem. There be dragons. A lot of people think it's too complex to get involved. It's opaque. I don't know how you get involved. You must be an expert to be part of SMPTE, and it's not inclusive. A bunch of old white guys yelling at each other, which is not really the case, but those are the impressions. And in fact, it's actually fairly simple to get involved. You can get a SMPTE membership, and on top of that SMPTE membership, there's an additional add-on. It's a standards participation. Once you got that, you are in the standards community, and that's the community which is developing our standards. There are two ways how you can really do this, either as an individual or as a corporation. As an individual, there are 4 packages. It starts with retirees, students, professionals, and executives. Different price levels, different set of features, but there's something for everybody. And I think the student one is $50, I think. And then you have corporate memberships, and there's 6 levels. I didn't put them down here. And they all have a free standards participation included. They start at 1 seat at the lowest membership and go up to 20 at the highest level. So if you're an individual and you're interested to join SMPTE and be part of SMPTE, then it doesn't hurt, and you're part of a corporation, a larger organization. It doesn't hurt to ask if they have a SMPTE membership, a corporate membership, and you may be able to get a free slot, and then you can be part of it for free, which is good. There are the links to, if you're more interested to learn more about that. And if you have more questions, we have a membership director, Julie Elsbury. She can help you with any questions in regards to that. All right, moving on. SMPTE Standards Organization, just to explain to you how we work and how we are structured. I said once you got the standards participation, you're in the standards community. Underneath that, there's a standards committee, is a closed group, a steering committee of about 30 people, standards leadership staff who look at the SMPTE standard process and try to deal with problems and improve it. Underneath that, we have 7 technology committees. They look at different technology areas. If you start with 10E, they look at image formats, compression, and color systems. For HDR, for example, image format. SMPTE was the first organization to standardize an ultra-high definition television system image format. We call it UHD1 and UHD TV 1 and 2. You probably know it as 4K and 8K. So we were breaking ground there. And very similar to what's happening in the ITU and what they specified for that. And then we have compression formats from different organizations. VC2, DRAC is from the BBC. VC3, DNX HD is from Avid. VC5 comes from GoPro. So moving on, 27C, everything cinema, sound. 30MR is metadata, everything around metadata. 31FS, file formats and system is interesting again. You may be familiar with the material exchange format, MXF. And we do a lot of wrapping of what we develop in 10E as an essence and wrap that into MXF. So for example, if you have VC3, VC2, VC5, they're MXF wrapping for that. And that's being done in the technology committee. And then networking facilities, they look at media over IP, SDI, synchronization, PTP, and timecode. Then we have 34CS is media systems and control. That's everything media in the cloud, where we are developing standards for that. APIs, device control, all that kind of stuff. And then 35PM is for IMF, that distribution package I talked about. And just to show you the connection, underlying the IMF is MXF. So if you have a video codec you want to get into IMF, you define it in the 10E Essence group. Then you go to 31FS, you do your MXF wrapping there, and then you take your MXF wrapping and you get it into IMF. So that's really kind of like how these TCs are sometimes connected. Different view of a structure, standards committee, standards community at the top. And underneath that, you have a technology committee. And underneath that, you have study groups and task force studying specific technology and creating reports, drafting groups. They write the standards. Those are the groups which write standards. Ad hoc groups are temporary groups which exist only for a short time to look at a very specific problem. And then we have working groups, which again then they look at a very specific technology area, and all the drafting groups which are concerned about that fall under that working group. So for media over IP, we have a working group, and underneath are drafting groups which then write the standards which are related to ST 2110, ST 2022, and so on. And all these create outputs. There are 2 distinct output categories. There's SMPTE engineering documents. Those documents which go through this due process I mentioned a couple of times. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then you have SMPTE non-engineering documents. Those are not going there. It's just a review. Often they don't go through this due process. So these top 3 documents are really the essential standards documents. And by the way, what I try to do here, I put all the acronyms in there because if you get involved in standards development, people will not use the full, they use all these acronyms. I put them on the slide so that you have almost like a cheat sheet. And if you get involved, you know what they're talking about, right? So how do you start a standard? There are really 4 phases, in my view. There's the ideation. Anybody can come to SMPTE and start a project, interoperability project based on an existing or new technology. Any person or organization can do that. Contact us. We will tell you to get educated. There's the operations manual and OM and AG's administrative guidelines, which support the OM. We recommend that you read that. There's a whole standards process in there, so that you understand how you start a project and how it goes through the organization. And you can contact me or the standards vice president, SVP. Email is there, and then we can help you with getting set up. If you know already, if you're already involved in SMPTE and you're in a technology committee involved, then you can also go to the CCGS. Then we tell you, and you can do that in parallel to getting educated, find support, find people who help you with the effort. As more people you get to the table, as more relevant the standard will be, because we're really about consensus and interoperability. Talk to your competitors, talk to supporters, come to SMPTE, and we have quarterly meetings, technology committee meetings, where you can present on a technology, and then SMPTE experts can join and help you. It's very valuable to understand because they understand the process. Once you're done, you can submit a new project form. It's called AG06. Put the link down there. If you have a draft document, you can submit that too. That helps you save some time. Submit it to the SVP and the Director of Standards Development. What happens then? Once you have done this submission, again, 4 phases. There's approval phase, 2 weeks. Technology committee members look at the project. It's the AG06 you provided. The barrier for approval is very low. We're just looking for technical feasibility and if there are any competition laws violated. Other than that, it's very easy to start a project. You can then start drafting once it's approved. If you already have a Word document, or if you already have a document, then you have to do minimal drafting. You can go right into the technology committee phase, where you hand your document to the technology committee, and that I call that the committee phase, and that's where the due process is happening. And once you're done with that, you publish. Quick look at the due process. There's an internal review, 2 weeks. People look at your document, they comment, you fix the comment if you want or not. There's a public review optional. You can hand that document out to the public. Then everybody can come and look at it, even non-SMPTE members. We hope that early implementers come and adopt these specifications and then give us feedback on what we can improve. Really important for us. And it's an iterative process. We can repeat it as often as we want. Can be out there for up to 3 years. Usually people do like six months or so. Once that's done, and you feel the document is stable enough, you do a ballot, yes, no vote, comments get submitted. You have to resolve those comments. Once they're resolved, another internal review, 2 weeks, to make sure that the comments were resolved and implemented correctly. And then there's another vote up and down for approval that this can go out to publication. I put the SMPTE lingo in there as well, so that you know that. I'm not going to go into this. A lot of acronyms I explained there again, if you're interested. And then once that's done and it's voted and ready to go into publication, it ends up in our new store. We moved away from IEEE. That was our previous store. It's now on our own. It's just started. It's a project in progress. So there's some issues. We're dealing with it. We're trying to resolve it. Over time, this will be a bit more functional, better search and all this. And once you purchase the document, and by the way, if you're a SMPTE member, all these documents, all the standards documents are free. You can get them for free from the SMPTE store. If you're not a member, you have to pay for them. But you get redirected to our download page. Important here to mention that this is based on a GitHub. Our document library is in GitHub, in a GitHub repository. And then we automatically create this HTML page or HTML pages with links to the documents, which are currently PDF. You get the newest version, but you get all the old versions, the superseded versions as well. So it's just not one document. Quickly about some of the contacts. Membership director, Julie Elsbury, I already said, any membership issue, you can contact her. Director of standards development, anything for the process and standards development, that I'm your man. Standards vice president, SVP, that's Sally Hattori. You can contact her for every strategy, question, new projects. She's your woman. And then executive director, David Grindle, for anything else. If you have questions about SMPTE in general, if you want to complain, for example, about this PowerPoint and me being too fast, you can send them an email. But be kind. That's it. Thank you very much. There's my email, and then down there is a URL there to a web page on the SMPTE website where I have other videos which go more into depth of the standard process, because I couldn't cover that in 30 minutes here, right? So, and learn your acronyms.